Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Financial Autonomy for Women, the podcast. My name is Maureen Paley. I am a life, career, and financial coach working exclusively with self identified women or anyone that has received the gendered conditioning that typically is given to those assigned the female sex at birth. In this episode, I'm really excited about it because I did something a little new this time around. I went out to my community on social media, put a call out to my community members. If you want to follow me over there, I'm very active on Instagram. You can find me at Maureen Paley Coach. And it's me that's behind that handle. So I'm the one that's answering and interacting with my community. So if you want to get in touch with me, find me over there. But I put a call out to my community on Instagram and I said, hey, what topics do you want to hear about on the podcast? And one of the responses struck me so much that I actually sat down about 20 minutes later to record this podcast. And that suggestion was, how can we ask for what we're worth? So basically, ask for a raise, negotiate a higher salary, raise our rates if we're a small business owner. How can we better step into that place of empowerment where we ask for the money that we know we are worth? This got me so excited because I think that, there's so many things to talk about here as women. We know that gender pay equity is not a reality, right? We know that in the United States, women on average make 82 cents where a man makes $1. We know that this is even more egregious. The number is even less for our sisters of color. So we are definitely not getting paid the same amount that our male counterparts are paid. So we know this. This is a fact. There is data to back this up. This is not propaganda or something that we are imagining. This is a fact. So what we need to do, there's many ways that problem needs to be solved. We can't get into all the ways here, but we are going to talk about some ways that we can step into a place of resilience, comfort, and confidence as we advocate for ourselves when it comes to our earnings. This is big. Remember, on this podcast, we talk about the 7 ways that we engage with money. Number 1 is earning. That's top of the list. Earning, spending, saving, investing, borrowing, giving, and manifesting. So today we're going to talk a lot about earning and how we can maximize our earnings. And we can use our voices to advocate for ourselves in a way that is hopefully less stressful than it has been in the past. And I'm going to offer you some resources and some steps and some ideas for how to do that. But also recognizing what's really going on, that the system is not built for us, right? If the system was built for equity, we would be experiencing equity. It's not built for equity. And so we're not going to solve all of that on this episode of the podcast, of course, but we are going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what we're up against. We're going to talk about the truth of what's going on. So let's start there. The first thing is that we know that gender pay equity is not a reality for us in the United States. I think a few weeks ago, I'm recording this in November of 2023, the women of Iceland went on strike. They went on strike to amplify and demonstrate the amount of impact that they have in their society, in their culture, in their economy, in their institutions, to drive home the point that even though their first strike for equity was 40 years ago, they're still not experiencing the equity that they deserve. So we know that on gender lines that women are not receiving equitable pay. And I would also argue, I think that's equitable resources, access to power, so on and so forth. So we know what we're up against, and it's certainly been around for a long time. And we are going to need policy to meet corporate will, right? We're going to need a blend of policy actions on the part of the for-profit sector, the public sector, and basically all sectors coming together to say this is no longer acceptable. That will take time. We've seen that that's going to take time. The equal pay push in Congress has been around and is still around, and we're still working on it, right? And this is why it's very important to vote for people who support equal pay across gender, across identity. So there's a lot of parts to this solution. And we want to honor that. And we want to honor where we're at so that we can make progress, even though we're in this place. So we know that there's going to need to be policy decisions made. We know that the cultures of organizations are going to need to change. And we know that as individuals, not just as women, but as individuals, we need to advocate for ourselves. That's one of the projects we have in front of ourselves as adults. We need to advocate for ourselves, depending on your identity, some of us more than others. So this is another space to be able to say, if you are someone in an identity group that doesn't have to advocate so much because the resources has flown your way, this is an opportunity to recognize the other identity groups where resources aren't flowing and support them as we move forward in this journey towards gender equity. So that's our gender equity background, foundation, and story. Let's talk about knowing our worth and asking for our worth. I love this topic. Here's why. It involves a mindset change, and also it involves a change in how we communicate. So when we change our mindset about our worth, the way we communicate our worth is going to change. Remember, all of the responsibility for gender pay equity and making more money is not totally on our shoulders. Let's talk a little bit about what we're up against. There are studies that show that women don't ask for raises as much as men. There are studies that show that they, in fact, do ask for raises and negotiate higher salaries as much as their male counterparts do. They just don't get it. Are we going to be able to parse out what's true and what's actually going on? Not really, but suffice it to say, both are probably going on, right? So if you are a woman who has asked for a higher pay rate, you've negotiated salary, so on and so forth. Let's say you've done the asking, you've been told no. What is the thing that you've learned? Well, when I ask, I'm going to be told no. So that might dissuade you from asking again in the future, right? And so we have to be able to work with that. Some of us are asking, some of us may not be asking enough. Here's my take on it. I think as folks who have received that gendered conditioning that comes with being identified as a woman or being assigned the female sex at birth, we have received the messaging that it is not nice, it is not proper, and it is not basically like within our wheelhouse to ask for more, right? It's not asking for more is an unattractive trait. And we have been often dissuaded from that. We have been encouraged to be happy with what we get, be grateful for what we have, so on and so forth. And all those things can still be true. But the overall messaging is that for those in across gender lines, we're not encouraged to take risks. We're not encouraged to look at ourselves as wealth builders. And if you think about it, asking for a raise is essentially speaking up with confidence and stepping out of scope, like stepping out of the norm of the gender norm. And that's taking a risk. And sometimes those risks, stepping out in that way, can be seen as shocking, surprising, and even aggressive, right? Aggressive, assertive, you pick the term that you want to layer in there. I think oftentimes, and we read studies about this and articles and so on and so forth, women's assertiveness is often perceived as aggression. And that assertiveness has a social cost. So we might often see that when we do ask, it's got a professional cost. So we might often see that when we do ask for raises, when we do negotiate a higher salary, this is seen as, again, out of the norm. It might be a shock. It might be an unexpected level of assertion and maybe even taken as aggression, right? So when we act out of the norm, there's usually a social price to pay for that. There's a professional price to pay. So maybe you're asking, maybe that's happening in the workplace, and then you don't receive the raise, or there might be some type of backlash at the workplace that you might receive for that. You might get left out of certain projects. You might get passed over for certain types of opportunities, what have you. So keeping that in mind, we know that, hey, if you're somebody who's feeling nervous about going into and asking for a higher pay rate, negotiating a salary when you get offered a job, raising your rates if you're a small business owner and you're ready to really step into the value that you provide in your products and services, no wonder that brings about anxiety, right? Because we know what happens, as social animals, right? Social costs can really affect us. So we want to make sure we're probably always, I would imagine, as humans, as social animals, social beings, probably always looking for ways to reduce social costs and the social price that we might have to pay for using our voice and speaking our mind and stepping into our true worth, so on and so forth. Um, so it is a risk. So I want to just like normalize that right there. It is a risk because we see what the data shows, right? And we know that there are prices and risks and costs involved. So, all that being true, if we don't ask, we shall not receive. I don't think that this is a gender thing, but I do think that some of us might be more trusting that I'm doing really good work and it'll be noticed and it'll be rewarded. So, we may not advocate proactively. It might be like a reactive, hey, I didn't get rewarded for all this great work I've been doing. I thought, kind of like a disappointment, like I thought I would. So we do have a responsibility to be proactive in the advocating for the value that we add. And the way that we can do that is by, again, we're taking a risk when we use our voice to step out of the gender norm and advocate for ourselves, to receive more, to receive what we're truly worth. But when we step into this place of using our voice, we can do so in a way that creates a tone about what we communicate, how we communicate about ourselves, and what we're focusing on in communication about our worth that paints a picture that, yes, this person is worth that, the salary they're asking for, the pay rate, the prices that they're charging, so on and so forth. So again, going back to mindset and communication, let's talk a little bit about our mindset. We know that we're taking a risk and we know that there's usually social costs involved, right? So, our mindset in the face of those challenges, we need to be compassionate for ourselves, like be honest about what we're up against, be compassionate to ourselves. If we haven't given ourselves the benefit of the doubt about our worth, and if we haven't asked for our worth in the past and we're really feeling down about that, let's be compassionate to ourselves. Let's forgive ourselves for that because it is hard. It is taking a risk. Let's remember what's really going on. It is taking a risk and it's hard to take risks and you need to be resourced in order to take the risks. So in the mindset game, the mindset side of this game, we are going to focus on resourcing ourselves. What does that look like? Well, if you're preparing for any type of conversation about your value, your worth, your rates, your salary, so on and so forth, you can take some time to feel resourced internally. This can be as basic as the morning of the conversation, you make sure you have a good breakfast and a full belly, right? You need your body, your mind, and your heart to be on board. You need your whole self, your nervous system to be on board with feeling resourced. So you want to treat your body well, right? You also want to, if you have a practice, whether this be meditation practice, whether this be yoga practice, whether this be chanting, maybe this is tapping, maybe this is some type of somatic practice that helps you feel grounded and aligned. Now, what does that have to do with money, right? What does that have to do with asking for a raise? Here's the thing, we don't see the direct connection, the direct through line. But when we have a practice that allows our bodies to feel safe and grounded and also experience rest, the body, AKA the nervous system, is going to start to talk to the mind and it's going to talk to the mindset. When we feel safe, when we feel comfortable in our own skin, when we feel rested, we are going to be clearer, more resilient, and more confident in communicating what we do need to communicate, right? About anything. So this is a good practice, right? So we've got, you got to be good to your physical body in regards to things like nutrition, sleep, your body related practice that keeps you grounded and helps you to feel safe. You also, so you got to do that for your body. And then how do we resource the mind? Great ways to resource the mind are to take an inventory. So I'm a coach. I love inventory because I think this is what they do. You might say to yourself, inventory, that sounds like bland and like unsexy and uninteresting. Why on earth would I want to do that? You sit down, look at the past month. Sit down, look at the past quarter. Sit down, look at the past 6 months, the past 12 months. Look at your calendar and write down, make an inventory, a list of all the things you did, all the things you made happen. I'm talking small things. I'm talking medium things, and I'm talking big things. Like, don't leave anything out. Take an inventory of all the things that you accomplished and maybe also how they helped you grow to see. Because sometimes when we get into the space of mindset, we got to work on our mindset and then we have to go and actually communicate our worth. We forget about all of the positive things that we have done. And we forget to give ourselves credit for that. So, what an inventory is, it's a conscious decision where you sit down and you write out everything that you have done. We're talking small, medium, large, all of it, as a way to give yourself credit. Inventories are ways to give yourself credit for all the good that you have done. Because when push comes to shove and we've got to get into communicating our worth, our nervous systems take over, our anxieties and our fears take over, and then our lens begins to narrow and we begin to forget about all the good things that we've done. So number one, you're working on your mindset, take an inventory. Number two, practice gratitude. So gratitude is another type of inventory. So you might want to develop a gratitude practice. There are studies that show a daily gratitude practice will increase markers of well-being. Again, we are resourcing ourselves so that our mindset is a successful mindset in order to be able to communicate our worth. So when we write down a gratitude list every morning or every evening or both, and here's the thing, I've done a gratitude list for about 2 years. I've got a gratitude journal going. And did I do it every day? No, I didn't. So it wasn't consecutive days, but I've been doing it enough where it is not a source of stress and self-blame, right? I don't have to do any self-flagellation if I don't write in my gratitude journal, but I get to go to it as part of the practice of emphasizing all of the good that's already here, which puts my mind and my spirit and my nervous system in a place where I am, again, feeling safe, peaceful, full, and comfortable in what I already had in front of me. So this is great for your mindset because when you do go out and communicate, knowing your value, asking for more, asking for what you're really worth, you will be coming from a mindset of abundance and not of lack and scarcity. So when we come from a mindset of lack and scarcity, it's I'm not getting enough, I'm not making enough, I'm never getting paid enough, no one ever pays me what I deserve, so on and so forth. We're coming from that's a place of fear. So that fear and that's going to come off in that mindset. The fear in our mindset will translate into our communication. And so when we practice gratitude in a regular way, in a consistent way where it fills us up, it fills up our tank of resilience and self-resourcing and stability, we're able to come from a place of abundance and gratitude in communicating our true worth. So that's another way to do it. Another way to work on the mindset is with affirmations. Now, you might be sick of hearing about affirmations, but here's the thing. What we tell ourselves sticks. Where our attention goes, energy flows. We know this. I mean, here's the thing. You don't have to study any type of Buddhism or philosophy or new age self-help stuff to get into this space. I think you can agree. If I continue to tell myself negative things, I will feel negative. And rather, if I tell myself positive things, I at least have a shot at feeling more positive. Affirmations are not going to make your life perfect. They're not going to make anything perfect. They are a practice. They are a tool that's in your toolkit to work on your mindset. And here's the thing, affirmations, you don't have to find the perfect affirmation. I would suggest finding an affirmation that feels authentic inside of you. So it's got to feel authentic inside of you. You don't have to, Google affirmations or have ChatGPT write your affirmations for you so you're doing the right ones. It's not like a magic spell that you have to follow. What's really important is that you repeat an affirmation, you practice an affirmation. And it's not so much like saying it over and over again. It's almost like practicing the affirmation, like you'd practice the piano. like you practice brushstrokes in painting or something like that. You're like, okay, this is a tool. This is an action. I'm going to bring it to mind. I'm going to say it. I'm going to have my thoughts, my actions, my words imbued with this affirmation. So this could look like, I am capable of asking for my worth. Like right now, that just lands for me. Just like, oh, right. I think I needed to hear that. There's something about that that lands for me internally. And the cool thing about already resourcing your mindset with the inventory and with the gratitude is that what feels authentic to you, what feels good and what rings true for you authentically internally, you'll be able to spot it much faster. So, and that's kind of where the magic part is, right? You do these practices and they tend to complement and talk to each other. So, an affirmation, anything that is positive, right? You don't want to get into the place of using negative language in affirmations like, I don't want to use my credit card anymore, right? So that would be a negative affirmation, right? Maybe the positive flipping the script on that is, I use my credit card responsively to meet my needs. Great. That's your positive affirmation if you're trying to work on your credit or something like that. So, positive affirmations, if you're trying to develop this resilience and this inner resourcing to ask for what you're worth, is, I know what I'm worth and asking for it is easy. I know what I'm worth and asking for it is easy. So here's the thing, that's going to help you build up your self-knowledge. I know what I'm worth, right? And this isn't ego, this isn't being braggadocious, this isn't like I know what I'm worth. This is I know what I'm worth. I feel it in my gut, in my bones. I know what I'm worth. And because I know what I'm worth, asking for it is easy. So consider these 3 tips to work on the mindset aspect of asking for more. And I don't even like saying asking for more because it's like, oh, you're just asking for more. You're just being selfish now. Let's talk about asking for what you deserve, right? Asking for what you are truly worth because you do have true worth. And the work that you do, the output that you do has a dollar value associated with it. So it's time to also embrace the dollar value that's associated with it. Okay. So we talked about the mindset. Let's talk about the communicating of your worth. This is go time, right? So in the mindset work, you did all that resourcing to build up that positive energy field, that reservoir of feeling safe, that self-knowledge, that authenticity around who I am and what I'm worth. And now it's time to communicate it. So how do we do that? Well, there's lots of ways to do that. I taught a masterclass this summer called Know Your Worth. And it was a masterclass just for women where we talked about the elements of asking for what you're worth, how to ask for a raise, how to negotiate a higher salary, and how to communicate that you're raising your rates if you're a small business owner to your clients, right? New clients and old clients, current clients. So here's the 3 things that you want to focus in regards to the communication aspect, asking for your value, asking that dollar value to meet the value you know you can deliver. So we want to start, number 1 is positivity. So much like the affirmations, we want to use the language of positivity. And again, the affirmations, like we said, we don't want negative stuff to be in the affirmations. We want it to be positive. Because when we're in the negative, we're getting closer into the territory of scarcity, lack, so on and so forth. And that's going to come out. That's going to be obvious. People are going to be able to pick up on that. And we already know that there's a social price to pay when we ask these things. So we want to kind of we want to mitigate all the things that can get in our way. And using negative language around communicating and asking for what we're worth, stating our worth, is going to be one of those ways we can mitigate the price, the social cost. So let's talk about what positivity means. In asking for a raise, in negotiating a higher salary, chances are you're doing that with an employer. You're doing that with a manager. You're doing that with a person who holds some type of power, a person, an institution, an entity, an organization who holds some type of power. So how do we do that with positivity? Well, if we walk in and we say, I'm not making enough money and I need to make more. You're not paying me enough. You're not paying me what I'm worth, and you need to pay me more. Is that going to go over well? Chances are no. We already know that there's this price and cost to pay. What we want to do is we want to focus on the positive. So let's say that you're in a job that you like enough, right? Some of us are in jobs that we absolutely hate. And I'm not going to ask you to be inauthentic about what you need to communicate. I'm not going to tell you that, hey, you have a job you hate. You need to make up a story about why you're so passionate about what you do so you can get paid more. That's up to you. If you want to do that, that's great. But I'm like, you know what's most authentic for you, right? And the reality is, a lot of us will have jobs that we hate over the course of our careers. It's a reality. And so if that's the case, my heart goes out to you. Like, I've been there. I don't want that for anybody, but it does happen. But what I am going to encourage is that if you feel good enough about the job that you're in, right? And you're like, okay, maybe you have a more like realistic and pragmatic view of the job. It's like, this job is paying the bills. It's not my life's passion, but I know I'm not getting paid what I'm worth and I need to advocate for myself. Great. If you're in a job where it is your life's passion and you're like, it is my life's passion, and the value that I'm providing is not being recognized in the dollar value that I am getting paid. So it's about the value that I'm providing. Is that showing up in the dollar value that I'm paid? If the answer there is no, and you do have that passion, finding connection, finding that authentic place where you know why you're at this job, you know why you're employed at this place, you know why you like to work with the clients and team members that you do. You know why you are running your business. Passion is a great place to lean into and to emphasize positivity. Because the thing is, I think for any person on the other end of that negotiating table, if they have an ounce of emotional intelligence, you can't argue with passion. Like, passion is one of the harder things to argue with, and the positivity around passion, when you show it in a way that is authentic and shows your humanity, that is extremely hard to argue with. Now, there might be some managers in the world, and there definitely are managers in the world that just like glaze over. It's like, I don't really care what you're passionate about. This is just cost cutting stuff. Okay, that happens. And maybe that's not the best organization to be working for. But if we are going to take this risk, if we are going to advocate for ourselves, leaning into that passion and that which will eventually give us the positivity, the wind at our back, it's going to be us showing up authentically as ourselves and knowing our worth, right? It's going to get us to those results. It's probably going to increase the chances that we get to those results. So if you are in a job where you're passionate about teamwork and working with your team or problem solving for your team and your clients and customers, building efficiencies, keeping things organized, fundraising like a total boss, whatever the connection to passion is inside of you, use that as your springboard for talking positively. So this could sound like, I really love working with this team, and I am so proud of the results that we have driven over the past 12 months. That statement right there, write it down if it's helpful for you. Like, you could put that in the nonprofit space, you could put that in the for-profit space, healthcare, tech, financial services, that can go anywhere. It's like, you make a positive statement like that, that's connected to feeling proud, feeling passionate, and also gets to that results, the R word, results, which is very important in a negotiation like this. That's going to be a really strong start. So that was first things first, right? We got to start off positive. Now let's go to the second area, value. Going back to something I just said a few minutes ago, there's the value of what we're offering, right? There's a few different value components here. That's the value of what I know I'm worth, right? It's the value that I feel internally. Then it's the value that I'm bringing to the table that has a dollar value attached to it. And then there's the value that they are recognizing when they pay me those dollars. Is all of that lining up? Is that congruent across those three? I think one of the most important things to remember is the value that you are bringing to the table. As women, we still do undervalue the value that we bring to the table. We will undervalue the dollars that we bring to the table. Oh, well, I didn't do that much, right? This is about not taking credit where credit is due, not being given credit where credit is due, not being recognized. Maybe we've got some sneaky imposter syndrome going on. Again, these are totally human, normal, and understandable experiences. If you are experiencing these things, you are not a failure. You can recover from these things, and you can build on the inner resources and skills and strengths that you already have to work your way through these things. Imposter syndrome is not your end destiny. And low self-worth or not giving yourself enough credit where credit is due is not your end destiny. If these are happening, these are changeable and workable. And that's exactly what we're talking about doing right now. So when we talk about value, the value that I'm providing to my clients, whether I'm a small business owner or I own my own business, the value that I'm providing there, the value that I'm providing to my organization, the value that I'm providing to my team members, it will have a dollar value connected to it. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the dollar value that we're getting paid is congruent with that value that we're providing. Chances are, if you haven't been giving yourself enough credit, I am totally guilty of this over the years, not seeing the full impact of the work that I've been doing. Chances are you're not getting paid in line with that value. So now in the communicating, we need to talk about how the value that we've been providing warrants. We need to make a case, build a case, make an argument for the value that we're creating, warranting the dollar value that we're being paid, matching. So some ways to think about doing this. You can actually, if you are in a position, if the type of work you do, you can map out the work that you've done and the actual dollars of profit, revenue, income, blah, 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 that has translated into, do it. Hard numbers, and that's the third piece, which is evidence. The third piece of communicating is evidence. Hard numbers are always good. Quantifying, always good. It's hard to argue with data, right? So you want to, if you can crunch those hard numbers, do it. Take the time to do it. Here's another thing to also focus on in terms of value. Remember, when you are doing the work that you do, chances are you are driving value. Are you making the company money? Are you making your clients money? Maybe your clients are paying you a certain rate, and the work that you're doing actually opens up a value opportunity for your clients to make lots of money, right? If that's what's happening or potentially happening in regards to your driving value, whereby the people that you're working for are able to get more dollars into their pockets, you're driving a lot of value for them. So you want to emphasize that as well. Here's how the work that I've been doing has been driving value for you as my client, the organization, my team, my department, so on and so forth. So that's the value aspect. We've got positivity, speak positively about it, focus on that value, the value that you're provided. Chances are you probably undervaluing yourself, and we need to make an adjustment, and making this mindset adjustment is also leading into the adjustment that the people that pay us are going to make, right? And the actual dollars that they pay us. The last part is evidence. Quantify whatever you can. Write it down. Put it in a spreadsheet. Put it in notes on your phone. It doesn't have to be perfect, but when you are in the moment of you see the value you are driving, and this might entail putting on value glasses, right? And now I need to start wearing my glasses every day when I go to work, or every day when I'm running my business, or every day when I'm doing XYZ. I need to wear those value glasses to start saying, there's value I'm providing. There's value I'm providing. There's value I'm providing. So that you can take another inventory, all the ways that you are providing value. and have evidence to back it up, right? So this could look like, again, the numbers and data are going to be your best friend. This is how much the work that I did, improved revenue. These are how many new clients I brought in. These are how many new clients you brought in. This is the wealth that you grew in the 6 months that we've worked together. This is the number of products or services that I sold in this amount of time. This is the expectations that I exceeded, and I exceeded them by 35%, as you can see. So showing the evidence for your claim, and think about what attorneys do when they go into a courtroom. They make a case. They make a proposition, right? This person is guilty or innocent, and they provide evidence to prove it. So we need to put our attorney hats on, right? This is the case we are making. I am worth this value, and this is the evidence that I'm going to give to prove it. So evidence is super important. When I go through my work month to month and my professional life and the coaching that I do, and also the other projects that I work on outside of my coaching business, I like to go back every month or maybe every few months and look at my calendar, because my calendar shows me all the meetings that I've had, all the classes that I've run, all the conversations that I've had, all the projects that I completed, so on and so forth. And so that helps me, and this connects not just to the communication part, but also to the mindset part, right? It's kind of like my way of doing an inventory. This helps me itemize and take a deeper dive into all the things that I did, and then the evidence for how that improved. So, back in February, like, it's November right now, but back in February, like, if I did a project, and what I can do is, it's like, okay, I did that project. What were the ripple effects for the next 9 months? What was the improvement? What were the changes? What were the successes that happened? And I can evidence that, and I can catalog it so that I can speak to it as part of me making that case. So we nailed the communication side, right? We're going to, when we communicate, we're going to focus on positivity, value, and evidence. Communication is the second part, where it's the other side of the first piece, which is mindset. So we've got our mindset. We're working on our mindset with our inventories, our gratitude, and our affirmations. And we are working on our communication with our positivity and our value and our evidence. When we put these two things together, we are in a space that encourages comfort in taking risks and in speaking in a way that is authentic, and I'm going to use the word unshakable, right? Because if I've done this work, then I've really tapped into all the things I really have been doing, which sometimes we overlook as part of our gendered conditioning, as part of not having been rewarded in the past, as part of women's work being erased and ignored, and not giving the credit where credit is due, right? So keep advocating. We are still, the things are the way that they are, right? We haven't achieved total gender equity just yet, especially in regards to pay and other areas. And we know what we're working with. We know what we're up against. We know the elements that need to come together for our mindset and our communication that supports us in feeling resourced, confident, and authentic in doing what we need to do to communicate our worth. And I would like to invite you to check out, and we can take these tools and use them going forward, using them in a self-supporting way going forward to make the decisions and to capitalize on the opportunities that present themselves to us, and the opportunities that we, quite frankly, create for ourselves. So I hope this was helpful for you. And if you're like, hey, I still need more help, can you give me some scripts? Can you tell me what actually to say? I got you. So I am going to share on my website a free download with script examples you can use. Here's the thing. I don't know your working situation. I don't know your small business situation, so on and so forth. So These scripts are starting points, but scripts can be a really great place, great place to start to just tap into the types of language that you can use. So don't use them word for word, and they're designed where you actually like can't use them word for word because you're going to need to fill in the specifics about your specific situation. But they're going to give you some words that you can use. You can try on for size. You can say, this word feels good. This word doesn't. I need to change it. You are the captain of your ship, but you can use them as a starting point. So those asking for a raise, negotiating a higher salary, and raising your rates scripts will be on my website. I will include it in the show notes. It's a free download, so you can download it for free. Make sure you share the link with a friend of yours because she can download it for free as well. And you can get to the mindset and the communicating aspect of communicating your worth authentically. I hope you have gotten something positive out of this podcast. And if you have, please give me a review, give me some feedback on wherever you listen to this podcast. Share it with a friend, spread the word, and you can always get in touch with me if you need to. So, as always with your finances, be kind to yourself, seek support when you need it, and let me know how it goes. Thanks.